The battle in the United States government to get the Equal Rights Amendment has lasted longer than the lives of some of the people who are currently fighting for it. And we're about to launch into one of the most sort of technical legal opinion battlefields for that fight. Hoping to learn a lot from our guest who joins us now, the Senior Counsel for Free Speech for People, Courtney Hostetler. Welcome to the Damage Report.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you here. With your organization recently, just a few weeks ago, being involved with a group of organizations that have been calling for the change to a legal opinion that is potentially holding up the ERA. Could you tell us what that's all about?
Absolutely. Back in 2020, when Virginia became the 38th state to ratify the ERA, thus pushing us over that important 3/4 mark, the National Archivist, who is the person who is in charge of actually taking the text and declaring that it is part of our Constitution, turned to the Department of Justice under then Attorney General William Barr and asked its opinion on whether or not he could certify the ERA. And the question was whether the time limit that had been placed in a resolution that had been attached to the ERA way back when it was first introduced, whether that time limit, since it has passed, barred these states from essentially ratifying it, right? And becoming, passing that 34th mark. The DOJ decided to wade in and give its opinion. And we think this was a problem for two reasons. One is that the Constitution actually has no role for the executive branch in the passage of amendments to the Constitution. There are basically two players. There's Congress, and then there are the states. And the executive branch really isn't supposed to be there. So our opinion is that the DOJ really shouldn't have entered that conversation at all. But the other major problem, of course, is that the opinion that the Department of Justice came out with was just wrong. And the reason is because it basically is saying that this resolution that was passed along with the amendment by Congress back in 1972 is sacrosanct, and that the states are bound by it. And they made this decision because some amendments back in the early 20th century actually included time limits in the text of the amendment. So if you go read the Constitution now and say, look at the 18th Amendment or the 22nd Amendment, you'll actually see that the text of the amendment includes a passage that says, this must be passed by 3/4 of the states within 7 years, or it's inoperable. So it's in the text itself. So when it went to the states for ratification, the states were ratifying text that said this is inoperable if you don't pass it within 7 years. Sometime,
so not in this case.
Exactly. In this case, the Congress put a time limit in a resolution, sort of next to the amendment, for lack of a better word, right? So in Congress's opinion, they wanted it passed in 3 years. But the text that went to the states, so Congress passed the amendment. There's no time limit in the text of the amendment itself. And the text of the amendment that went to the states did not contain a time limit. And as we've actually seen, not one, but 3 states have, since the time limit passed, have ratified it. And I think that speaks to the ongoing need for the ERA and the fact that we are seeing an ongoing demand for equality and a recognition that the protections in place now aren't enough, that we really do need the ERA. We've tried to make do with this patchwork, but the ERA is necessary and important. And we've, like I said, 3 states have in the past decade or so recognize that what we have now is insufficient. We need that push to the ERA. They've ratified, the text that they've ratified says nothing about a time limit. It's not like the 18th Amendment. There's no limit in the text itself. So states should not be bound by it. So what we have now we have 38 states, we have a Congress that has done their job. They've passed the ERA, right, way back in 1972. And we now have 38 states that have done their job. 38 states, 3/4 of the states have said this needs to be in the Constitution. We have ratified it. At this point, really, the National Archivist's only job is to certify that ratification by the states, and it's part of the Constitution. And in fact, the National Archivist wrote a letter in response to an inquiry from Congresswoman Maloney, I think back in 2012, saying this essentially. And it was really only when the National Archivist received this opinion from the Department of Justice early last year that they stepped back and said, in deference to the DOJ, we're not gonna certify.
Yeah, absolutely. So since then, obviously, we've got a different head of the DOJ. Just out of curiosity, because I honestly don't know, it so rarely matters. Is the archivist the same person that it was when that decision from the DOJ changed the course of the ERA, or has it been changed with the coming in of the Biden administration?
No, the archivist has actually been in his position since 2009. So it's the same archivist.
Okay. And so what exactly are your groups asking for? Is it for a new legal opinion being put out by the DOJ? Is it for the archivist to ignore the previous legal opinion? Is it for Biden to get involved or Congress? What exactly would you like to see happen?
Our ask is for this opinion to be rescinded. Because as I mentioned, not only is the opinion wrong, the DOJ is part of the executive branch, and our Constitution doesn't create a role for the executive branch to play in the passage of amendments, right? There's Congress, there's the states, and then there's the National Archivist, whose job is purely ministerial, right? His job is to say, this has been ratified by 38 states, it is now part of the Constitution. He is deferring to this DOJ opinion. What we're asking for is for the DOJ to rescind the opinion. It's wrong. It's a wrong opinion, and we want that rescinded. And once it's rescinded, it clears a path for the National Archivist to acknowledge that the steps laid out for the passage of the ratification of an amendment have now been met. Congress, states, it should be certified. And we don't think that this opinion should stand in the way anymore.
Exactly, or in theory, be replaced with a different opinion, which doing that would just play into the idea, in your opinion, I guess, the false idea that the executive branch should be involved in the first place.
Exactly.
And so our viewers, is there anything that they can do to get involved in this? If they want to see the ERA get passed, that they could help out and potentially get in the DOJ to take this position?
Absolutely. And I think this is probably recommendations you've heard before, but contact your representatives. Contact your representatives in Congress, in Senate. Ask them to put pressure on the DOJ. Ask them to raise their voices in support of the ERA and make sure their opinions are known that way. There are some great organizations that are doing work in support of the ERA. I recommend your viewers check them out. A lot of them have grassroots movements and do work to mobilize. So there's a few ways that they can get their voice heard and reach out to other activists and amplify from there.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.